Hello, my name is Subhash, and in this video I'm going to teach you a strategy for biorisk assessment. So this video will be useful to the students, principal investigators, project managers, adult learners and anyone who is interested in learning more about biorisk management. So when you are doing the biorisk assessment or risk assessment, so there are many strategies and approaches available. So you can use any approach or any strategy because the ultimate idea of using different methods or approach is to identify the hazards, identify the threats, do the risk assessment and come up with the control measure plans. And the approach or the framework which you are using will depend on the nature of the situation. And at the same time, the level of the information required. So it depends on which framework you are using. The ultimate idea is to mitigate the risk and to make sure that the necessary control measures are there for the biosafety and biosecurity risk. So this is one of the framework which can be used for the biorisk assessment. So first of all, what you can do is you can describe the activities and gather the information about your project as well as the facility where the project activities will be carried out. Once you have all that information, you will be easily able to identify the hazards as well as threats there. And once you identify the hazards and threats, you can determine the risk. So when you are determining the risk, simple question you can ask is whether the risk is acceptable or not, or decide whether or not risk is acceptable. If the answer is yes, then you can proceed with the work. Your activities of the project can go ahead. You can conduct the research, but at the same time you have to monitor the control measures to make sure that nothing will go wrong. But if the answer is no, and what I mean is if the risk is not acceptable, then you have two options. One option is you can prepare the control action plan and you can implement control measures to mitigate the risk. Maybe you can use, for example, personal protective equipment, or maybe you can think of substitution, or maybe you can think of engineering controls, or maybe you can think of elimination strategy, or maybe you can think of administrative controls. So whatever is necessary, you can use that control measure and mitigate the risk. And after that one, finally you can review the adequacy of the plan and then see whether the risk is acceptable or not. So when you will do the review of adequacy of the plan and decide whether or not risk is acceptable or not, then depends on situation. So you have three options. Option number one, if it's yes, proceed further. Option number two, take the necessary action to mitigate the risk. And option number three, you can revise or close the project. So these are the three options. So this one is a wonderful strategy. That's why I call it as a classic strategy for biorisk assessment. So anybody can use it. It's very straightforward and it's very useful for the biorisk assessment. So to summarize, there are a number of approaches, there are a number of methodologies which can be used for the risk assessment as well as to mitigate the risk. However, the methodology or the approach which you are using will depend on the situation. So at the same time, the level of the information required. So this is one of the framework, or this is one of the strategy, or this is one of the method which can be utilized for the biorisk assessment. So thank you very much for watching. Take care and stay safe.